Okay, so in terms of how to calculate the Roman year system, we have to think in terms of how they calculated time. So one of the things that they did is they would calculate year one when they founded the city of Rome. Now we calculate that day as 753 BC, but for Romans, that was pretty much year one. So in order to convert a date that is written in an AUC date that is going to be before the year 753, meaning it's going back in time even before Rome was founded, you're going to subtract it from 754. And again, that's because they do inclusive counting. And so we have to think in terms of year zero not being accounted for. And you're going to attain a BC or BCE date. So if we get this date in an ancient Roman document, for example, it says DCXCI AUC, meaning 691 AUC. Well, 691 is less than 753, so it's a BC date. So we're going to subtract it from 754 because that's the year that it was founded, 753 plus 1 to accommodate the fact that there's no year zero, and that will result in a BC date, 63 BC or BCE, which also happens to be Cicero's consulship, which is another way that they would write the year. They would write in the year of Cicero's consulship. Now, if the number is after 753, meaning after the year was founded, then we're going to have something that's probably an AD date or a CE date. Not probably, it will be. So if you get something like when the Cornelius family lived, right, and it's 833 AUC, well, 833 is more than 753, which means that that's going to be an AD date. So we're going to take that number that's an AUC date larger than 753 and subtract 753 from it, and that will give us an AD date. We do not need to count for year zero here because it goes from basically -1 to 1. And this is when the Cornelius family lived, 80 AD or 80 CE. Now, this is the more practical use of dates because if you think about it, you're going to be a historian looking at documents from the ancient Roman world and trying to figure out when these ancient Roman events happened in our concept of time, which is, as we know, wrapped around the concept of when Jesus was born. Whether you're Christian or not, that's just the way that our date system works. However, it is very helpful to think in both ways, right? Very much like how we translate and compose. It is good to think about how could we take these AUC dates or these AD and BC dates and turn them into AUC dates. So to determine if an AUC date is a BC, you would have to subtract it from 754, meaning it's less than 754. So BC, right? So 754, which accounts for year one because we're already past 1 and -1, right? You're going to subtract 509 from that, and that will give you an AUC date, 245 from the founding of the city. If the number is an AD date, you're going to add 753 years to it because you have to count for all the years that were negative and then add together all the years that were positive. You do not have to subtract one after that. That's only up here in terms of if you were doing a AUC date that was BC. So for example, the death of Augustus, which was 14 AD, would be 767 DCCLXVII AUC.